Sam Darnold for MVP. We'll break that down and all the other September surprises on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today is a very happy Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also read her over at Yahoo. We're going to be breaking down some of the biggest surprises in September, some big duds, including Mark Andrews, and then buy or sell these week 3 performances, including a couple very, very interesting receivers. But Kate, let's start with Sam Darnold, who, if the season ended today, I think would be a unanimous MVP. 181 yards passing, 4 touchdowns against the Texans, 0 interceptions as the Vikings thrash the Texans to take a 3-0 lead on the season. Are you buying Sam Darnold in Dynasty leagues?
I actually think if you're in a win now position, Sam Darnold is not a bad buy. So here's the thing. Sam Darnold is performing exceedingly well right now. I think there's no question that this is a big part of the Kevin O'Connell offense and what he's able to extract from Sam Darnold just with his offensive scheme, resetting the entire narrative about his career. And by the way, Sam Darnold, you mentioned MVP, his MVP odds right now plus 2,500. So if you are really like buying that this Sam Darnold performance is the real deal, you should probably go smash that. But here's the thing. He's doing this without Jordan Addison on the field, without TJ Hawkinson on the field. So like, I'm actually looking at the situation. And if somebody wants to offload Sam Darnold and I'm in a 2 quarterback or a super flex format, Sam Darnold might be an intriguing buy because we are going to get TJ Hawkinson back for the second half of the season, right through your fantasy playoffs. We are eventually going to get a healthier Jordan Addison, who, again, like, you know, dealing with this ankle injury, had the other ankle injury. Hopefully he'll be good eventually. But Sam Darnold is doing all this, and he doesn't even have his best players available, all of his best players available right now.
And they've played a pretty hard schedule out of the gate, right? The Giants, they beat in week 1. I think the Giants have a really good defensive line. We saw that play out in Cleveland in week 3. They played the 49ers at home. They played the Texans at home, and they beat both of those teams pretty soundly. Now, the schedule is still tough out of the gate. They play the Packers in Green Bay next week, and then they play the Jets. Okay, you look at like the rest of the schedule, some of the teams they played, Colts, Titans, Cardinals, Falcons, Bears, Seahawks, Packers, Lions, like, there's going to be some massive, massive games for Sam Darnold coming. And he's only 27. He's actually younger than Joe Burrow, if you think of it that way. I don't know what the long-term answer is with Sam Darnold in Minnesota because obviously they drafted J.J. McCarthy last year. And I think a lot of Sam Darnold's value is tied into playing in Kevin O'Connell's offense. But there's just a really good chance that he finishes as a top 5 fantasy quarterback this year, because the efficiency and the volume is going to be outstanding.
And let's also talk about what the defense does for Sam Darnold, because you have this defense playing out of their minds under Brian Flores right now. That puts the offense in some extremely advantageous positions from a scoring perspective. And that's going to be good for Aaron Jones. That's going to be good for Sam Darnold. That is going to be good for the entire offense and the fantasy production that we're tying to this offense. So like right now, I'm actually buying Sam Darnold. Again, that's the caveat. If you were in a win now mode, if you were a competitor in your dynasty leagues, I think he could be the real deal. Just the fact that this is what we're getting out of him, and we're not even at the ceiling yet. The ceiling comes with a more favorable schedule down the stretch. It comes with all of your best playmakers being available. Imagine what this offense would be doing right now with a fully healthy TJ Hawkinson and a fully healthy Jordan Addison
Crazy.
in that mix. Like, it would just be ridiculous. And it will be ridiculous.
All right, let's talk about some other surprises from September. Who do you want to shout out?
I think we've got to shout out Rashee Rice just briefly
Sure.
here. We talk about Rashee Rice a lot on this podcast. We have always been huge Rashee Rice fans, but right now I think we're all pretty excited. Had a fantastic week 3 performance. Just looks the part. I'm going to be honest, just looks like the bona fide wide receiver one. Yes, you're going to have Xavier Worthy playing this complementary role. He's going to do all of the things. He's going to, take some snaps out of the backfield. He's going to run some deep routes. He's going to do a little bit of everything, but it really does seem like right now this offense runs through Rashee Rice.
Yep. Rashee Rice had more targets than Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Noah Gray combined in week 3. I mean, he is the offense. Like, I was tweeting about this last night. He's the clear-cut second best player in this offense, and I'm not sure what would happen to the Chiefs if Rashee Rice were to miss a game. Like, they just don't have another player on the roster like him. And Kate, I tweeted that maybe there's a chance that he leads the NFL in receiving yards. I think it's assuming he stays healthy, right? He plays 16, 17 games. I think it's a lock that he's going to lead the NFL in receptions this year. I mean, he has got 24 catches through 3 games right now, and it could be even more. There was some drops sprinkled in. There was a couple of misses by Mahomes. Like, he is just going to get peppered with targets.
Yeah, right now, as things stand today, obviously we have Monday Night Football pending, but right now ranks 3rd in targets in the NFL right now. 29 targets through 3 games to this point. Leads all wide receivers NFL in receptions. Ranks 2nd in receiving yards, only behind Nico Collins, who incredibly is leading the NFL in receiving yards despite having just 18 receptions. Super efficient there. Now, what I think is interesting is we're still seeing this level of efficiency from Rashee, despite the fact that still a fairly low average depth of target. But the fact that he's so good after the catch, it doesn't even matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all. It's Rashee Rice is somebody that's really hard to rank in Dynasty, and I wouldn't necessarily go out and tell you to buy him right now because we know what's looming with him probably in the 2025 season. But long term,
I still say buy again. I still say buy.
He's a really good player. He's not just a product of Patrick Mahomes because you're seeing him get open. You're seeing him make plays after the catch. And one of the things, this is kind of trivial, but I really loved after the game. I don't know if you saw this. He was being interviewed by Sunday Night Football after the game. He got a game ball, and they asked him, what makes him such a good player? And he just pointed at Patrick Mahomes, and he says, I just do whatever that guy tells me to do. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's that's what's going to endear you to Mahomes. And that's what makes you somebody that Mahomes is going to trust is hey, I'm telling you to do this thing. Go listen, go do it. And you're going to continue to get the ball. I think we're going to see a lot of these games going forward where it's 10 catches for 105 yards in the touchdown, 9 catches for 110. He's just going to get peppered with targets from the best quarterback in the league. It wouldn't shock me if he finishes as the overall wide receiver 1 this year.
Yeah, let's talk about another really pleasant surprise. We talked about this guy on Promotion Commotion last week. Mr. Jaywan Jennings led the NFL in receiving yards again. Monday Night Football pending here in week 3. 11 catches, 175 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. And I'm going to be honest, Marcus, just looked like the best wide receiver on the 49ers roster right now.
Can you tell me again why the 49ers spent a first-round pick on a wide receiver this year?
No. No.
I mean, in hindsight, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of terrible things that have happened with Ricky Pearsall that are not his fault, but you signed Brandon Ayuk to a massive contract, you restructured Deebo Samuel's deal, and then Jaywan Jennings, whenever you need him, steps up to the challenge. I want to give him more snaps and more opportunities. And with the drafting of Ricky Pearsall, I don't know if that's going to happen. He's just an awesome football player.
I don't think you can take him off the field for Ricky Pearsall. What has Ricky Pearsall proven to this point? Again, I know like lots of circumstances beyond his control, obviously the shooting, and then you had the injury, which apparently was an injury or kind of that this organization was aware of coming out of the draft. So like I don't think with the way that Jaywan Jennings has played, and again, the organization also opted to pay him this offseason. So like I don't think, obviously it wasn't a Brandon Ayuk contract, but I think it was like a decently sized contract. And I think all things considered, you don't pull a player that is immediately contributing at the level that Jennings is for a Pearsall who is a speculative ad, hadn't been healthy through the entire offseason program. Like Jaywan Jennings, I think actually, again, and this isn't even through the first few games of this season. It's dating back to the postseason last year. Jaywan Jennings has looked like the best wide receiver on this roster.
Kind of crazy. All right, okay, let's talk about some players that were disappointing not only on Sunday, but have been disappointing through the first 3 weeks of the season, including Mark Andrews. We'll get to him next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. Listen, as I was watching the Cowboy game yesterday, couldn't have been more depressed, had no desire to get up off the couch and go make food. So what did I do? Of course, pulled up the app on my phone, DoorDash, ordered some pizza, got a couple medium wings that were good, made me feel a whole lot better. DoorDash is going to change the way that you watch football this year. All you have to do is use promo code LOCKFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We are breaking down some of the biggest winners and losers from week 3. Okay, let's talk about Mark Andrews, who basically no-showed again yesterday. You didn't even know that he was on the field, had no impact at all. The only impact that he had is he had one target at the end of the game where the Ravens were trying to milk the clock, and it was incomplete. It gave the Cowboys a chance to climb back into this game, and they did. That was it. That's all you saw from Mark Andrews. I'm starting to wonder, like, is it over?
It's starting to kind of feel that way. And like, let's be clear, the Ravens, this was kind of a weird gameplay. No player on this roster ran more than 16 total routes here in week 3. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, they were the only 2 wide receivers to run 16 routes. Isaiah Likely, though, ranked 3rd on the team in routes run, 11 routes run on the day. Mark Andrews all the way down at 6. He ran the same number of routes as Derrick Henry, who is like, we always know, like, you get Derrick Henry a screen pass and he somehow has the speed to like take it to the house at any given moment. Sneaky good in that aspect, but he is not like the guy you are having run routes a la a Christian McCaffrey. Like, for him to be running the same number of routes as a Derrick Henry is something.
It's weird. Yeah, now I know a lot of this is because the Ravens ran the ball so well yesterday at 274 rushing yards, I believe. I lost track after 250. It's whatever.
They ran the ball well, but like, again, why isn't he running
more routes
of Isaiah Likely?
Baltimore's not going to be able to run the ball this well on everybody. They're going to have a bunch of smash mouth games coming up that are much closer than this, where Lamar Jackson's going to actually have to throw the ball. 12 of 15 in this game, and most of the passes were within the line of scrimmage. I'm not panicking about the Ravens passing offense yet. I just wonder if Mark Andrews got really old in one offseason.
Jeez. At 14 run blocking snaps in this game, by the way. Again, I know that was just kind of the way that he was being utilized, but 6 routes run. Isaiah, like that's the thing that I keep getting hung up on. Like, I know you want to use him in the run blocking game, and I get that, but when you are in a passing scenario, I want you running a route. And the difference between Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely is that Isaiah Likely was running the routes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really understand what's happened. And is there a chance maybe he's still not like 100% from this whole like car accident? I don't know. But
Can we talk about the Cowboys for 2 seconds?
we can talk about the Cowboys. I'll give you the floor, Marcus.
Oh, I was going to give it to you. I don't want to talk about this team anymore.
I think I'm a little concerned about the Dallas Cowboys right now. I'm going to be honest, like this is just kind of it feels like a symptom of what we saw the Cowboys do all offseason, which was kind of dink around. Like they weren't aggressive in free agency. They like just did the whole CeeDee Lamb contract thing, and that dragged on, and then Dak's contract dragged on. At least Dak was like getting reps, but it just, they didn't invest in the run game. It just feels like we're kind of seeing everything that the Cowboys didn't do all offseason suddenly becoming a problem, which maybe we shouldn't have been all that surprised about.
Okay, moving on. I don't want to talk anymore about the Cowboys.
Well, no, you have to tell. Are you worried about the fantasy? Because obviously there are only two guys.
No, I'm not worried about their fantasy offense at all because their defense might be so bad that they have no choice but to be in a bunch of these shootouts, right? I mean, even yesterday, as bad as it was for the Cowboys, Dak had 380 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, also in a rushing touchdown, so 3 total touchdowns. Jake Ferguson in his first game back from a knee injury, 6 for 95 on 11 targets. CeeDee had a quiet day, 4 for 67, but Jalen Tolbert caught a touchdown. Kavontae Turpin caught a touchdown. Like, they're still putting up yards and points. It just doesn't mean much.
And CeeDee Lamb, to this point, again, 8.6 fantasy points here in week 1 in standard leagues. Like, I'm just saying that, like, CeeDee Lamb, maybe we're seeing him get off to a slower start. He had 17 points in half PPR leagues last week, but still not seeing like the boom.
Well, this happened last year, by the way, too. Like, it wasn't until after week 6 where we saw CeeDee Lamb go on an absolute tear. No, they do have some easier matchups coming up. I think this Giants game is a good one for CeeDee. I'm not concerned. Like, he'll be fine. Again, I'm not really concerned about anything on the Cowboys offense. Like, we weren't expecting Ezekiel Elliott or Rico Dowdle to be like RB2s in fantasy. So they're not really letting you down there. Ferguson's doing exactly what you'd hoped he'd do. CeeDee will be fine. Dak's putting up big numbers. I'm not concerned about their offense at all.
Okay. You know what offense I am concerned about?
Which one?
The Chicago Bears. We got to talk about the Chicago Bears and what I mean. I think generally speaking, I don't know that there's a whole lot you can do with this offense for fantasy in any given week because they are truly broken. Caleb Williams looks broken. The morale of everybody in this organization looks broken. DJ Moore looks broken. Their offensive line. For those of you who didn't see the still shot of every single one of their offensive linemen just fallen over on the floor, literally fallen like butts on the field. Everything looks broken for this team. How do we reasonably start any of these fantasy assets with confidence? I don't know that we do.
I mean, at least yesterday you had multiple guys have decent games. I mean, Rome had 112 yards and a touchdown. Kmet got, I think, 39 targets in that game. At least it felt like that. I mean, Caleb Williams did throw a ton of passes, but it's not going to be like that every week. And the efficiency is just not great. I'm actually more concerned about the other side of the ball, the other team in this game, the Colts, Kate. Anthony Richardson, 10 of 20, another game with a 50% completion percentage, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor looked awesome. Outside of that, nobody else had a good fantasy day. The Colts are the team that I'm actually more concerned about moving forward.
And all of that stems to Anthony Richardson here.
Yeah.
The Colts have a big Anthony Richardson problem, and I don't say that lightly. And Marcus, again, I'm going to point out the fact that this has been our primary concern about Anthony Richardson heading into this season is, can he develop enough as a passer to overcome, those deficiencies? And we know what he can do in the run game, but
Yep.
last 2 weeks, Marcus, 12.9 points in week 2, 7.1 points in week 3. Like, the thing is, the passing floor is so low that, like, I don't know what amount of rushing they can possibly scheme up for Richardson to crawl out of that deficit, if any. And it makes pretty much every wide receiver in this group entirely unstartable. Like, Jonathan Taylor is suddenly the only guy that I truly trust in this offense.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. He's the only one that I want to start. And yet next week they play the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he might be back to your bench. Not great. All right, Kate, let's talk about some players that had some up and down performances in week 3. And if you are buying or selling them moving forward, we will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games tonight, Bills, Jags, Commanders, Bengals. So go check out all that FanDuel has to offer. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Again, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel.com. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go listen to the new Locked On NFL Now show with 2 shows every single day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks you off in the morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, Kate, I'm going to run through a bunch of players right now, and I just want you to tell me if you're buying or selling them based on what they did in week 3. Let's start with Dallas Goedert, 10 for 170 on 11 targets. Devontae Smith got banged up, left this game. A.J. Brown did not play. Are you buying Dallas Goedert as a top 10 tight end again?
I'm selling. I think, again, when given the opportunity, due to injury, what have you, Dallas Goedert, a tremendous asset. But I do not think Devonta Smith, concussion, and A.J. Brown hamstring injuries are going to give him that opportunity every single week.
Okay, I agree with you. Next one. Emmanuel Wilson for the Green Bay Packers got 12 carries for 50 yards on the ground. Also added in 2 for 35 in the receiving game. Are you buying him as like a potential running back by committee with Josh Jacobs?
Sell. I think once healthy, I think Marshawn Lloyd is going to be the dude.
Okay. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers. Andy Dalton, 26 of 37 for 319 and 3 touchdowns. I was telling you pre-show that I wrote an article for 33rd Team on the biggest winners and losers coming out of week 3. Bryce Young was on the list because the last thing that you needed was Andy Dalton to come in and absolutely light it up. He did. Are you buying Andy Dalton?
I think I am buying Andy Dalton. Here's the thing. Dave Canales, we saw what he did for Baker Mayfield. Like, the spark came alive. I do think this offensive line, better than probably anybody's giving them credit for with the investments they made this offseason. They played fairly well. You have a very talented wide receiver in Deontay Johnson. You have Xavier Legette, who's just this big, fast beef man. Yep. You have Adam Thielen, who maybe has something left in the tank. I don't know. But here's the thing about this offense is you don't even have arguably one of the most valuable players that they are going to have soon in this offense. With this, Jonathan Brooks offers a lot, and pass pro can, be a receiving option out of the backfield beyond what Chuba Hubbard can. Like, I'm kind of buying. Who would have thought, me sitting here? I'm kind of in on Andy Dalton and Sam Darnold this season. I'm disgusted.
All right, next one. Baker Mayfield, they played the Denver Broncos this week. They got absolutely smashed in that game. Baker, 25 of 33 for 163 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Kate, over the last 2 weeks, Baker's averaging 174 yards a game, 1 touchdown in each of those games, 1 touchdown in each, or 1 interception in each of those games, sacked 12 times. Now, he got off to a really good start against the Commanders in week 1, but I'm starting to wonder, maybe the Commanders are just that bad on defense and Tampa Bay is not that great on offense.
I think that's a very fair summation here. I think Baker Mayfield, what he's probably just going to be is one of these, players that you're going to stream depending on the matchup. Now, it has a couple of matchups against the Panthers, for instance, on their schedule. Gets the Giants in November. Like, these are kind of the matchups that I think you're going to target Baker Mayfield. I don't think, even despite his hot start, that he's like a must start any given week. I think this is probably the more extreme, end of the low end of what we're going to get out of Baker Mayfield. But I still think this is probably closer to the average than what we saw in week 1 against the Commanders.
Last player that I wanted to mention to you, Quentin Johnson. Now, didn't have a huge game in week 3, 2 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. But that offense basically fell apart once Justin Herbert got hurt again. But so far through 3 games, Kate, 10 catches, 133 yards and 3 touchdowns. Are you buying Quentin Johnston?
I'm not buying Quentin Johnston. I'm a little bit concerned about just the health status of Justin Herbert. He was already banged up with this high ankle sprain coming into this game, aggravated it again, left again in a walking boot. Like, I don't think that he's going to be a sustainable asset if Justin Herbert isn't on the field. I still don't know that I'm buying like just the player in general. Am I alone in that?
I feel indifferent because the touchdown was, a nice touchdown. It was also a blown coverage.
It was blown coverage for sure.
I'm just to the point with Justin Herbert where I wonder if he's always going to be kind of like this, where it's just he's struggling to stay healthy. Like Adam Schefter tweeted out all the injuries that he's had since his rookie year, and I'm like, it is a long list, Kate, and it continues to grow. He said that this is a continuation of his high ankle sprain, and now I wonder. I don't see any world where he plays against the Chiefs this week. I don't think that Jim Harbaugh is going to put him out there to get crushed by that defensive line. And I just don't want anybody on this offense, if it's Taylor Heineke or Easton Stick playing. But again, this is Dynasty. We're talking long-term here. I don't know. I'm as much as I love Justin Herbert, I'm having doubts that he's ever going to be able to stay healthy for a full season. And anytime that he misses games, the rest of this offense is completely useless.
Yeah. And I think generally speaking, if I'm thinking of kind of like a safer player that will be more likely to overcome any periodic absences from Justin Herbert, I think it's probably Ladd McConkey, who's going to be that safer option out of the slot, get some more layup shots than Quentin Johnston, who you might be depending on some blown coverage. He's had some nice catches this year, but definitely more of that volatile player. I would prefer to offload Quentin Johnston from my rosters if I can.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Go get your podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy the 2 Monday Night Football games. I have no idea who asked for 2 Monday Night Football games, but we got them. Enjoy them, and we will see you right back here on Tuesday.